right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We are super happy that you guys could join us from all over. I see everybody in the chat letting us know where you guys are. I am in LA. Ooh, Washington, love it. So yeah, I'm in LA. Chelsea, of course, is in beautiful Hawaii, so can't top that. But I just did want to welcome you all and thank you so much for joining us. I am super, super excited because this is our first Allied event. We have gotten into Allied for almost 2 years now. So we have almost every specialty. We have mental health, we have OT, we have PT, you name it, we have it. So I am just super, super elated that you guys could join us today. And honestly, for Chelsea to come and give us some 101 on travel therapy.
I'm excited.
For for those of you guys who are unaware, I am Britt. I have been a nurse for 10 years. I've traveled for about 5. So I know some of the stuff that Chelsea's gonna give you guys the information on. I wish I had this when I was coming in. So I'm super excited. And also a little bit about Trusted. We are a healthcare staffing platform that places travel nurses and allied healthcare professionals in all 50 states. So be sure to definitely check out our website and our platform if you're looking for a travel assignment. We also have local as well. And then not only besides the assignments, we also try to support you on and off the clock. So what that means is we have a ton of blog resources. We have events like these. We also have in-person events as well. So just make sure you stay connected with our community and you guys can find out about cool giveaways and things that we're doing as well. We always have a whole host of things going on. So we just want to make sure that you are supported in everything that you do and everything that you are. So yeah, without further ado, I will hand it over to Chelsea. I know she's the person you guys came to see here today. So we will get started.
Thank you, Britt. She is awesome owner of Trusted. She's the best. So everything she said about Trusted is a very vetted agency. So I'm excited to even collaborate and have this opportunity to share about Travel Therapy 101. So I have a slide deck that I'm going to run through. I really enjoy interaction, so I also have the chat popped up. So if you have a question, feel free to shoot it my way. If it's a question that's kind of on brand for the topic we're talking about on the slide, I'll answer it. If it's a topic that's later on in the slide deck, I'll make sure I go back to it. But we're in a nice little flow, so I'm going to run you through what the process looks like on a very basic understanding, hopefully. I won't dive too deep into the lingo travel with you today, but let's just get started. Let me understand how to get these slides working. Here we go. Cool. So there's a couple of topics like the overview, planning and organization, onboarding, application, the agencies and recruiters, interview and offer, contracts and pay, the credentialing process after you accept a job, what do you do for housing, packing and moving, and then long-term considerations. At the very end, I'm going to touch on just the lifestyle because I've been traveling now for over 4 years. I love the St. Croix that popped up because I was actually in St. Thomas for a travel assignment prior to coming back to Hawaii. I've been mostly pediatrics, so I have just a passion for treating children. So I've been lucky to find contracts within my kind of little specialty that I like. And then, like Britt mentioned, we're gonna do question and answer at the very end. Okay. So my mission is just to inspire you. I did create a brand, Transcend Travel Therapy, that coaches other therapists into this lifestyle. But today, I just want you to see that it's possible to travel as a new grad. And I hope that this presentation allows you to kind of get that inspo and that itch to kind of go for it. So this is my track record. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I'm from Pennsylvania, so my very first travel contract was in California. I left Pennsylvania after I passed my boards the first time around in February of 2020. Now, if you remember, March 2020 is when COVID hit. Now, I'm a new grad, fresh out of school, leaving my whole family, and then COVID hit when I was in California. I ended up staying there longer than I anticipated all the way through to the summer. And then I went to Alaska for another outpatient peds, and that was a 10-month contract. And then Hawaii, because I was craving the sun. It was tough because in Alaska I was there through the winter. And then I went to St. Thomas, and then now I'm back in Hawaii. So, what is travel therapy? So, it's for the allied professionals. PT, OT, speech, even CODAs and assistants can travel, and you travel to various locations that need services. So, typically, we take 13-week contracts. Now, for me in the school system, I take about 9 to 10-month contracts. And then you can explore. So, one of the benefits for traveling is the diversity of settings. So, you can kind of have a taste in what rehab's like, inpatient or outpatient, or maybe you do want to try pediatrics and you want the outpatient experience or the school-based experience. So there's a lot of different settings that you can go for. And then you take a contract through a staffing agency like Trusted, or and you are a subcontractor. So you're not like directly hired through that facility. You're contracted in to work in the school district or to work in the outpatient clinic. And so, why are we needed? So, there could be chronic shortages, there could be seasonal demands. Like Alaska, no one wants to go to Alaska in the winter besides this chick over here. I did it. The reason I did it was because it was a 6-month contract. So, they signed me for the 3 months over like the fall, which was beautiful. And then I was serving the last 3 months in the winter. So it could be seasonal, or it could just be medical, or the Yeah, Britt's right. The Northern Lights was something that I absolutely chased most winter nights, which made it very peaceful. And there could be crisis contracts. So oftentimes those crisis contracts are higher paying, and you are working really hard. So, what are some trades? You can drop them in the chat if you want to, but I'm about to share on the next slide what makes a travel therapist or travel nurse, any healthcare worker, successful in this industry. Adaptability. So, this is like the strongest thing you can put on your resume is the first two bullets, is that you're adapting to the environment, not only location, but also the setting, new people, new friends. You're adapting to a lot of different things. And it shows that you're flexible in change and that you can tolerate those transition periods. So, having that non traditional lifestyle play out, those two traits will really be strong for you to kind of adapt to. And then communication, obviously, and interpersonal skills and clinical skills are always a positive. And then the last one is definitely open to just having an open mind to what this lifestyle can give you. I never knew that I would kind of become the person I am today, like talking to you. I used to not be able to even call the dentist and make a dentist appointment. So like I've gained so much confidence in this lifestyle, personally and professionally. So those traits will start to kind of brew, and you can kind of like secure as you get started in this industry. But if you already are coming in there with like a fast learning and a confidence, this lifestyle is definitely for you. So the overview that I gave in the very beginning, this is kind of the roadmap to what we're going to talk about today. So building that resume is like the first step, and determining your goals for this industry. Then we're going to talk about what are these agencies and these companies, and how do I even connect with the recruiter, and how do I apply to positions? Like, what does that even look like? And then the next step after that would be the interview process. So, what is a travel interview, and how do I even negotiate my offer or accept an offer? And what's the credentialing process? What is required of me? And how do I even pack, right? Like, what do I bring? How do I find my housing, my cars? And then I'll touch on first impressions really briefly and how to create a community when you're on the road. So, to plan, I would recommend as a new graduate or even new in this lifestyle of becoming a travel therapist, figure out which state licenses you would want to go for. So, as a new graduate, this is a pretty key step because you'll want to obtain maybe 3 licenses, let's say California or Washington or even Hawaii. And if you get those 3, you'll be looked at more appealing, especially as a new grad because you're already licensed. It's a state that you want to go to, so you know you'll get reimbursed for that license when you get a job. And then the very last bit that's key is that you won't have to apply for a license verification process. So for me, 4 years later, if I decided that I want a Delaware license, I'll have to apply and send a verification of Hawaii, Alaska, Pennsylvania, California, all the states that I'm licensed in. I'll have to get a verification sent to Delaware that I'm licensed there. And it just takes a longer process because individually I'll have to go and apply and send a verification. So it's just a little bit more convenient to think about the states that you want to go to and apply for those licensures. You want to kind of minimize and get some financials under your belt. Establish your tax home, which is your residency. While you're traveling, we're going to talk about the tax home. You want to get your certifications and 2 references. So this is important because when you onboard with an agency, they're going to ask for references. So if you can identify 2, that would be great, and kind of prep them like, hey, I'm looking for jobs, I'm going to go for travel, and they may call you. You want to get an annual physical exam and get your immunization history and build that resume. So some questions to think about is, where am I going to establish my tax home? What is my financial plan? What will I do for my mail? Am I going to have it all sent to my tax home? Am I going to have things delivered with me on the road and change my address? And what are my health insurance options, which we will talk about as well. You can get insurance through the agency or private, or stay on your parents' plan until you're 26. So this is a huge topic, and it's not the most fun topic, a tax home. This is a place where you need to establish. In order to qualify for tax-free money, you need to establish a tax home. So this is, for us, if we think about per IRS standards, if we go through these boxes, the first box, your tax home is your main place of business. That's not appropriate for what we're doing. The second box is, if you don't have one main place of business, then your tax home would be the main place. No, that makes sense either. So the last one is, if you don't have a main place of business, which is us, you can still have a tax home where you regularly live. So this, if you hit these 3 things. So you must perform your business in that area and use your home for lodging. So this, you would have to maintain it by going home. So you can't stay in Hawaii for over a year and never go home to your tax home, which my tax home is where my parents live. It's where I grew up. It's where I have worked in the past. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so my tax home originally was Pennsylvania. I worked there. My driver's license was in Pennsylvania. I had a state OT license in Pennsylvania. All my mail for 90 days was in Pennsylvania. So that was my tax home. So I went home in between my contracts to maintain my tax home. And it's recommended 30 days consecutive or 30 days out of the year. You would definitely just make sure you're making a pattern that you're going home, that you're not just staying out in St. Croix or St. Thomas on the island for consecutive years, because that means that you're abandoning your home, your tax home. So you have to duplicate your expenses. So that means that I'm going to pay rent to my parents in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to pay rent here in Hawaii where I'm subletting. So I'm duplicating my rent expenses. That's the second requirement. And the third one, like I said, you cannot abandon your tax home. So you have to make sure all your mail or your driver's license, like I said, or that you have shown proof of working in that area, and that you do use that home often for housing in between your travel contracts. Now, I am not a tax expert. This is one of the most boring topics to talk about, but it is highly important that you understand it. So if you have more questions, we can dive deeper into it on another talk. But for right now, for the purposes of this slide deck, That's all I'm going to touch on, but just know tax home in bold. You need to understand what that is. Now, important documents. I keep all this little checklist in a virtual app. I have a scanner app and I upload, so I have a digital proof in case I need anything. I just get nervous not having these things on me, especially if, let's say, like a crazy extreme event happens, like a fire in my parents' house or something like that, and I don't have access to showing anything. So I personally like to have it on the road with me, and just in case anything, an emergency situation happens. So here's a checklist that I would write down that you should kind of have in the back of your mind to put in a safe place or a digital scanner app. And then, so we would generate lists. So you would start looking at your state licenses. If you're not licensed yet, that's okay. When you get your license, it's important to keep a log. So that's why I have this slide. You have to stay organized because you're responsible for your own licenses. You have to make sure that you have it active and that you know when it's expiring and if you want to reactivate it. So licensures happen, every state is different. They happen maybe biannually or every year around your birthday. It just depends on when the state license application is needed. So I have a Excel log that I keep for the issue date, the expired date, and what the status looks like. And then on the professional experience side, I definitely keep track of what my leadership looked like coming out of college. I also wanted to make sure I had volunteer to show that I am like compassionate and show empathy and that I want to give back to my community. And then what computer skills. So if you can think back to your fieldwork placements and think about what EMR systems you use, that should also be on your resume because as a travel healthcare worker, you're kind of expected to work that 13-week contract without much help. So if you can show that you already have the computer skills that are needed for that contract, you're again going to be likely to be hired as a new grad because the computer skills are already integrated. All right, so the onboarding process. So what should you know when you're submitting for a job? So you should definitely consider what the pay rate looks like and what the location and the facility is looking like. So there's some data that you can collect. So housing costs in that area. So let's say you're going to San Diego, California. I would maybe look on Airbnb, Facebook Marketplace, just other housing sites that you could run some dry numbers and see what the rates are going like in that area. And then the city data. So in the location, what are the per diem rates or what is the crime rate? What is that location going to be like? And you can kind of do a dry research just using Google. And the facility reviews, again, I highly recommend this. I don't think I really, in my beginning contracts, looked at facility reviews until I was in a rough facility. And that taught me to make sure I do my background research before saying yes to a job because sometimes it looks great on paper, but once you're actually there, it's pretty traumatic or can be traumatic in like the ethical dilemmas or just not knowing that the reviews online literally gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. So make sure you just do your research. And the other benefit is that this community, like Britt said, this travel community is just so amazing. So a lot of travel therapists or just other allied professionals in this industry will give you a review. So these jobs recycle. The one in Alaska that I had, I still have people messaging me asking about it, and I went there 3 years ago. So these jobs often continue having travelers. That said, a traveler probably was there prior. So if you can get a phone call or get a message sent to someone that was there and get a review directly from that source, that is probably the best way to do your little research to make sure you kind of have a bigger picture of what you're getting into. And so you want to make sure you have a positive relationship with these agencies and the recruiters. So there's not one single best agency or one single best recruiter. They're all very special in their own ways. And I love that Trusted is building a allied division because they are very vetted in this healthcare industry already. They have a really strong customer service, which is something that I look for. So you want to make sure you find an agency that feels good to you. And as a new graduate or just new to getting started in this industry, I recommend, just like the licensures, 3 recruiters to start. Because if you have more than 3, it becomes a little bit overwhelming when you're first looking for your first job. And as you get more experience, you can dabble with more. That after your first contract, you aren't a fan of that one recruiter, you can slowly like move on and find a new recruiter. But this is your career partner, so you really want to have that honest and loyal relationship with that person because they're your best friend when you're on the contract. They're your main point of contact. They're who you call if you need anything. So I always think about it as a life partner. Like who would you want for a life partner, and kind of play that in a professional realm too. Is like, do you want someone that's always calling you? Do you prefer text messages? What's the time zone difference? And make sure you find someone that is matching what's like needs that you are wanting for a relationship. And then what is your why? So we think about your why, there's 3 things that I and all the other travelers prioritize, and it's your location, it's your pay, and it's your setting. So, what is this to you? And this might help build your career goals too. So, for me, I knew I wanted to explore. When I first got into this industry, I wanted to go see what else was outside of Pennsylvania. I went to a school in the like Amish area, and it was in the farms and really remote. So I was like, I really want to go and see these national parks and just explore and get new hobbies. So location was my priority. And then I always ranked pediatrics. So I think my trend, and this changes every contract that I take, but often I prioritize my location and setting because I love pediatrics and that's my jam. Like that's just I just love it. So I have done a skilled nursing facility, but I just prefer pediatrics. So that's why I prioritize that. Now for someone else might prioritize pay, and they might go and get these high paying contracts and they don't care about where they're at because they're there for 13 weeks. They want to pay off their student loans or they want to save for a house. So there's different reasons why you would prioritize your why in these 3 things. And as I said prior, open mindset is key because you might not get all 3, and oftentimes you won't get all 3. So if you're prioritizing like pay and setting as your top one, like really really close, but the location is also like a preference, like you want the coastal towns only, or you really want the biggest cities like Salt Lake City, Utah, so you can go snowboarding, and you're ranking all these other things like the pay and all and the setting, it's going to get really narrowed down for the recruiter. So I always say prioritize 2 and then let the third one be okay if you don't reach it. Because the unicorn jobs come, but not often. So you may get 3 out of 3 of your priorities and hit the best job, but they might not come often. So it's a possibility, but just be realistic. So, what are the methods to find an agency? The best way is word of mouth and your peers, other travelers in this industry. I have a recruiter recommendation link that I can send out and get you connected. I know Britt has trusted allied recruiters as well that we can get you connected with. But I would go for word of mouth, and that way they're already vetted, and that you can feel at least a level of comfort knowing that someone has worked with this recruiter in the past. There's the website, so you can Google websites for travel healthcare recruiters, and there's a bunch of other agencies that will pop up, and you can apply directly to get matched with the recruiter on their sites. There's social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. I know a lot of recruiters who are highly active on those platforms, and other travelers who will be like definitely free to share who they work with. A lot of us really want to get other people inspired to kind of go after this lifestyle. So a lot of us are most of all, I would say, are easily approachable. And then there's a matchmaking site called Nomadic Care and other job boards, and you can attend a travel healthcare conference called TravCon. And that's where all these agencies meet up. That's where I met Britt and got to meet her in person and really connect. And it's an amazing way to get to know your recruiters face to face and the agencies as well as the people behind the agencies, because you often don't get that exposure when you are on your contract. And then, so what's travel pay? It comes down to two main factors. There's tax, which is your hourly wage, and then there's untaxed. So, back to the tax home lecture, the reason why you have to have a tax home is because you'll qualify for this untaxed money. We call it stipends. So, in your untaxed money, you get money, tax free money, for housing and your meals and reimbursements. So, that's your licenses, that's your CEU reimbursements, your travel reimbursements. So, that's all untaxed. And then you have your hourly rate. On a travel contract or your travel breakdown, your hourly rate will be lower. It's $20 or right around $20. And then all the other money will be put into your untaxed. So it is a little bit alarming. So everything you know about a permanent job, I always say toss it out the window, because travel is a different breakdown. And that's okay. So because you're getting qualified for untaxed money. So once you have this job that you want to go for and you apply for it, you're going to interview. So the biggest tip I would say is to pick up the phone. A lot of times you don't know when they're going to call you. You want to make sure that you are adaptable and you're receptive to learning the facility's guidelines. So you want to seek out positions that you're excited about. You don't really want to go for something that might not actually be something that you're like, okay, I'll interview for it just to interview for it. That's not how this industry works, because these jobs will come quickly and they have lots of applicants. So you want to make sure when you submit for a job, it's something that you feel really enthusiastic about. And then that confidence will come in the interview because you'll just be a personality. It's just going to be you. And you want to showcase your personality. A lot of times, the travel interviews are informal. So they don't have a formal sit down video where they're asking you case study questions and really getting to know like deep and nitty gritty stuff. Most of the time, it's a quick authenticity check, and you want to make sure you're selling yourself and that you're going to be molded to the facility guidelines. As a new grad, that is the biggest tip I can give you. My recruiter told me that years ago, and I led with that every time with the interview. I said, I'm eager to learn and I'm ready to be molded during like my contract on your like at your facility. So that's a little bit about the interview. So avoid the last little tidbit about this is to avoid discussing your pay with the direct interview person. So let's say, for example, I'm interviewing for this position here in Hawaii in the school district, and I'm on the phone with one of the supervisors for the DOE, and I get the interview went really well. I don't want to talk to that DOE supervisor about pay because I am employed through the staffing agency. So I'm not going to be employed through the DOE. I'm a subcontractor. So let's say, for example, I'm working with Trusted. I would go to Trusted after the interview and tell them, hey, I really want this. Britt, let's go for it. I really want to say yes. And then I would have that conversation on all the logistics with Britt and that recruiting team, not the DOE supervisor. So after the interview, you may hear within hours or even minutes or days. So it just depends. I would give it a gauge of 24 hours. Typically, you would hear yes or no if they want you. And then I would also say, as a respect, you also give them that 24 to 48 hours of yeah, I want this, or I might need a little bit more time, or if it's not something that you even want at all, just let it go. So you can take time if you really need it, but you also just don't want to waste their time and leave a bad taste in their mouth. So if it's something that you really are not feeling good in your gut about, just let it go and it's okay. Know that it's okay. Because you don't want to go for something if it's not feeling good just to please other people, and you get there and it's your life, it's your career, and yeah, so you don't want to just go for it just to please your recruiter. If it really doesn't feel good after the interview, it's okay to say no, but generally you want to determine that within one, like 24 hours, like one day. And signing the contract comes next. So most of the time at this point in the process, because now we already have our recruiter and our agency that we love, we submitted for a job and we interviewed for this position in Alaska to go see the Northern Lights and to really have fun snowshoeing and doing all the things. And you already know the pay. So at this point, signing the contract, you want to read it. You want to make sure you have the days off that you need in that contract because you're going into work. So the days off need to be known ahead of time. It's really hard to get days off as a travel therapist. So knowing your days off and planning those 13 weeks or 3 months or 6 months, knowing that you have a wedding this weekend, make sure it's in your contract. And actually read it. But at this point, it will be pretty easy because everything has already been talked about. You most likely would already know your pay package because, again, at this point, it's pretty hard to negotiate for more money because you already interviewed, you already know the pay package breakdown, and you just want to make sure that everything's written as it was talked about. So signing this with confidence will come pretty easily. And then housing. So I recommend going and finding your own housing. However, there's options. Trusted Health could help provide, and they could even hold the stipend and go find housing for you. So that way you don't have to deal with it. But that means that your pay will be lower because they're keeping your housing stipend. On the other hand, if you take your housing stipend, then you go and find your own housing that feels good to you. If you have different preferences, let's say you have a dog and you need to find dog friendly, or you really want roommates because you love being around people, and being away from home might make you feel a little bit lonely, so roommates is a priority. Or maybe you're like, no, I don't want roommates, I want a single studio. So you have the like best options to go find it yourself. Now, what are some ways to find this? Furnish Finders is a really strong site. Now, that's highly, highly talked about in this industry. Most landlords are, they go through like a background check, I believe, and it's a pretty serious background check. So there's not many scammers, is what I'm getting at on Furnish Finders. And with the keyword furnished, you know that there's a apartment or a room or something that you're going for that's already, everything's there. So for example, this place, I didn't buy a single thing besides that's my surfboard, but the bed, the TV, I'm even using her desktop MacBook this afternoon. So like everything is hers. And so I'm actually subletting, but still same thing. You want something furnished because otherwise, it might be more expensive to then go and buy a bed and furnish it for the 13 weeks that you're there. It just doesn't make sense financially. Airbnb and Vrbo are pretty popular, and Facebook Marketplace is a strong one. However, there's more likely to be scammers on that site, so just tread lightly. You can use social platforms and word of mouth as well to find housing. How are we doing? Any questions so far? Doing good? I'm gonna take a sip of water. So this packing list is so up to you though. I put a little, thanks Brett, I put a little list here. No, my first travel contract, I overpacked. I packed so many things, which is pretty consistent, I think, for other travelers too. And now I pack really light. So throughout the years, you're going to realize, like I said, majority of people wear 20% of their closet 80% of the time. So that's a jaw-dropping stat right there. So if you can think of your favorite items that are going to comfort or that you're going to feel confident in, pack them. If this list is like so long, maybe have someone help you downsize the list, but you want to bring your clothes. So for me, I brought 3 to 4 scrub outfits when I first started, because with outpatient peds, we're allowed to wear scrubs, like scrub pants, and then I would bring pretty neutral tops because with peds, I don't want very visual distraction tops. So most of the tops that I brought, I could actually wear for like casual days out with friends too. So that was universal. And then your toiletries are something that I would consider packing in just home goods, things that like feel good to you. Like I bring my hydro flask everywhere I go. Maybe there's a mug that you really enjoy to, like, again, to seek comfort when you're on the road. I do bring therapy supplies now because I've been working in remote places like islands, Hawaii and the US Virgin Islands, and resources are rarely, like, very limited. So even on Oahu, I tend to pack my favorite things and I know my favorite things, so that makes it easy. But just starting out, maybe get a clipboard that has, like, I remember buying a clipboard that had a lot of fun little facts about range of motion, how to test manual muscle testing, like just more biomechanical approach. I have the link to that if you need it. So if you're someone who loves rehab, I would recommend getting a clipboard that has like fun little quick facts to help you with your evals, or just a book, or just anything that is going to make you feel confident when you're going through your evaluation process or your treatments. And those legal documents are on that scanner app that we touched on previously. All those documents that are important to you, your licensure, your board certification, all those legal documents, and then your hobby. So for me, like I said, I did pack a surfboard. I brought my freediving fins and other hobbies like my wetsuits, and but in Alaska, I actually packed like obviously way different hobbies like hiking shoes, and I don't know if I actually packed much camping gear, but I ended up going to the thrift store in Alaska and getting a bunch of layers because I couldn't fit like I couldn't pack really warm things, a lot of warm things, because they're this thick in your suitcase. So one of my tricks is to go to a thrift store and just pick up some things that maybe you missed packing on your checklist. Now, how do you get there? Now, this is a bush plane in Alaska that I've been on, by the way. All these pictures are my pictures that I've been putting in on this. So this is fun. How to get to your assignment. Are you going to drive? Are you going to ship your car? Are you going to fly and then rent cars? Or are you going to use like public transportation? For my first one, oh, yeah, I know. For my first one, I shipped my car from Pennsylvania to California. I was finishing up my college degree. My dad had a lease for me, so I ended up not being able to even drive it because we were kind of close on our miles. I could pack that car with 100 pounds in the trunk, and then that's it. So then I flew with a suitcase and I landed in California and got my car like a week or two later. So that was how I did my first assignment. It really lucked out with timing. I returned the lease in California and then I flew home. Now for Alaska, I was young. And I ended up buying my first car on my contract in Alaska. And that was very intimidating. However, I wanted something that was going to be really strong in the winter because I knew I was going to stomach the cold months and ice and black ice and snow and just like get really, really bad conditions. And I wanted an auto start. So I actually found the car. I did the whole process by myself because my parents had to leave and get out of town for their flight, and I was in the car shop by myself. I sold that vehicle more than I bought it for 10 months later. So that is a financial strategy as well. Renting a car in Alaska is like $800. Renting a car in Hawaii, again, $800 a month. So, and in the VI, it's just really, really expensive, the places that I've been to rent a car. So I've done that process of buying and then selling a vehicle 3 times. And every time I've sold it for more than I bought it for. So that's a whole different topic that I'm not going to dive deep down into, but just have that in the back of your mind too, that you could put in extra work and hit your financial goals if you do your research, and that's your own preference too. All of my other friends pretty much stay on the mainland and they have their own car and they drive around to their contracts. Some even do van life. So there's a lot of different options. I have just flown to my contracts. Now, some considerations is timing. So right now I have 1 month left here in Hawaii. The school's about to get out for the summer. I am actively talking to my recruiters and wanting to know what's next. Like today, Britt and I were like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't really know." So it's okay not to know. But it's also really important to keep your recruiters in mind. Even if I don't know, I'm still telling them, "Hey, listen, I think I need to go home. Like, I think it's time. I've been out here on the island for a little while. I miss my family. They just all got together the past weekend. I think I need to go home." Like I said, this conversation and this relationship with my recruiter is like my friends. They are my best friend. So I am talking to them without hesitation about what my plan is. So they know where my mindset is at. Okay, Chelsea needs to go home for a little bit. I don't know how long she needs to be home for, but let's just reconnect in a couple weeks or whatever it is. So it's okay not to know, but 4 to 6 weeks before you finish a contract is when you're going to start this process over again. So, are you going to extend is one option. For me, not realistic because I am in a school system. The kids stay a little bit longer for extended school year, but I'm not going to do that because I just can't do that. So, I wouldn't have the option to extend. However, in California and Alaska, I was able to stay that 10 months in Alaska because I extended. So you can negotiate. So if you think back, I said I originally signed a 6 month contract in Alaska. I extended and negotiated when I wanted to leave. So I stayed until the summer because I was like, you know what? I put in the most brutal months here. They say summer is the best time in Alaska. I want to stay until blank date. And they agreed. They were like, okay, so you are like the driving course in this industry. You can negotiate your contract length, like mostly your hours, and with reasonable guidelines, your pay as well. So you can go out and seek a contract that really feels good to you. And then you want to reevaluate your recruiter and your agency. So did it feel good to work with that person? Sometimes there's really strong agencies, but really poor recruiters, and then vice versa. So to reevaluate your recruiter connection, and sometimes it might just be like logistical things. Like you just really want the island lifestyle and that agency doesn't have it, and that's okay. It's okay. Like I said, you're going to work with 2 to 3 recruiters, and the recruiters know that. And you just want to be like honest about what you're looking for and what your priorities are. And then the insurance and benefits. So you'll get insurance through the agency if you choose to. When you finish a contract, you are no longer insured. So for me, at the end of May, if I was with my agency's insurance plan and benefit plan, I would be uninsured at the end of May. However, I now have private insurance because of that, because I take longer time off, like consecutive months. And my parents like, you live too much of a risky, adventurous lifestyle. You cannot, Chelsea. You need insurance. So I finally have private health insurance. So those are some of the considerations to think about for what's next for you after you finish a contract. And some long-term considerations, just to touch on based off of my experience. It is really hard to settle down. I have this like itch to always go explore new things. So settling down is, for me, this is like based off my considerations. Just kind of, I just wanted to share because it is a very dreamy lifestyle and so much fun. And if I am able to connect with you afterwards, I would love to share more about my personal journey in this industry. But this is why I'm here to inspire you, because I know how positive it can be and transformational. There are just some things I want you to think about, because settling down or feeling like emotionally detached at times. So I withdraw at times, not often, but I often like don't feel like I'm at home. Like I when I'm traveling, I'm here to see my bucket list things. I'm going to adventure. I'm like super excited to go and explore my whole community, but I don't feel like attached to that setting or that facility or that location. So there's a level of like detachment a little bit. And then with my family too, I miss family events. So like I said, just the other weekend, my whole there's a lot of boys in my family, and all the boys' birthdays are super close to one another. And I missed the whole celebration of all their birthdays. So I was FaceTiming them like all weekend. And it made me feel really homesick because I'm out here on an island floating miles away, literally the only island in the Pacific Ocean. And my closest land is Japan. So I obviously got a little bit homesick, but it's okay. Like it comes in waves. And then you might not know where your home is. So I'm coming to the point where I do want to settle down and I do want to establish roots somewhere and I do want that life partner and all the things, right? Like in the next stage of my life, like my solo travel era, I feel like it's coming to an end. I just don't know where. So these are just some things that just can consider. Maybe you will find that home on this road though that you're going on and you really enjoy Boise, Idaho when you're on a contract and you want to stay put there. So that's still a way to flip it to a positive because you're going to seek out these beautiful locations and it might feel like home. And then you can advance clinically in some aspects. However, if you really want to go for a specialty, it's really hard to find those level 3 traumas or those let's say you want to be with a little newborns in a NICU. It's like really hard to come by some advanced specialties in the industry of travel. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It's just harder to seek out those contracts. And yeah, I think that's kind of the long-term considerations for just for mindset to think about. Any questions? I think we're coming to the end of this presentation. So my lifestyle is very active. I have found freediving as a way for me to kind of show a different level of passion. I've been athletic my whole life, and freediving has allowed me to have my athletic demeanor come forward, but also find a huge hobby and passion that I enjoy. So I have healthy habits based off of my hobbies and just my lifestyle. I definitely at times have that urge to live that vacation lifestyle because we're on these amazing contracts. We're in these places, like I said, for time. So we want to go and seek out these bucket list activities that we don't get to see back in Pennsylvania. So it's okay to be lonely, but I encourage you to say yes to new things that push you outside your comfort zone. So there's many things that this lifestyle has given me. Like for example, this is literally me going to on this yacht in the Caribbean. Like I just can't process sometimes these moments and experiences that I get to explore, and it's truly from saying yes and just going for it. A lot of people didn't realize that you could work in the Virgin Islands. So now being an inspiration and showcasing the life in the Caribbean with the boating industry and all the things, it just opens your horizons to what else is out there. So you develop these new interests and these new hobbies, and you just get to meet new people and new communities. So that is why I love this lifestyle. And so, when's the last time you did something for the first time is a motto that I like lived with for the first year of traveling, even 2 years into traveling. I always want to just like keep going, keep transcending my like hobbies and just who I'm meeting. And it was a really amazing career early on. And to see myself transform into this coach and this educator and collaborator personally and professionally, it's just been a beautiful journey for self reflection. So, I want to know if you have any questions for me. Here's a little quote: choose a job you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. That's kind of what it feels like for me. I feel like I won the lottery with travel therapy. So, any questions for me or Britt?
If you want to pop them in the chat or the Q&A section, that would be wonderful. I have a few from the pre-form, so I'll go through those. Um, Danielle, that's a great question.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah. So which wait, I think you cut out for a second. Do you want to run the questions from the pre-call or should we answer the
You can
chat?
answer Danielle's while I'm getting this.
Okay. I have. I worked with me and my best friend Meg Cotter went on a travel contract together, and it was two OTs in a skilled nursing facility. So I have done a travel duo. I don't have much experience with it, but I would say it's possible. There's plenty of other travel therapists that I see that are coupled up, they're partners or just best friends, and they go and chase contracts together. I would say when we had the three talk about the pay, the location, the setting, it will be pretty like you have to be pretty consistent with your partner that you're going to travel with or your friends, or you're going to just be consistent on the location and the setting can differ. So you might want to work with like peds and your partner wants to work with adults. It might make it a little bit more flexible to find a position in the same area, but there are positions that have two people, like they need two OTs or they need a PT and OT duo. It never hurts to ask in the interview if they'll take you and your partner. So the reason why Meg and I went for it as a duo is because in my interview at the very end of it, I did ask. I said, "Hey, would you be open to having another OT come with me?" And she actually was open to it because there's another facility that needed help nearby. So it never ever hurts to ask the question, but you can see the positions posted on job boards and you can see, okay, there's a trend to have two people in this area. So it is possible, Danielle, if you're thinking about traveling with a duo.
Yeah, everything that Chelsea said is spot on. I would just also just let your recruiter know as well, or for if you're working with Trusted, let your nurse advocate know. A lot of times they can also make sure that there is a second assignment, or that they can kind of put those things together, depending. But yeah, I would just communicate that. But yes, it is possible for sure. One of the questions we have, how do you act as a traveler with staff during contracts? Like some are distant, non-communicative, about some of the issues at hand. So how do you kind of like represent yourself or be a great traveler?
Yeah, this is a good one because I realized that early on. I know I mentioned Alaska a lot in this in service, but truly in Alaska, I was the youngest person and I was coming in after a traveler who was not liked. And they were not liked because they were rigid, they were closed off, they didn't really care much about connecting with the coworkers, and it kind of gave a bad taste to the other staff, other permanent staff. So they think travelers, oh, they don't care. They're only here for a short period of time. So me coming in, brand new out of school, youngest person in the facility, like biggest smile on my face. No one was talking to me. And I was like, what is going on? Like I literally felt so homesick because I'm out there in Alaska. Literally my moose are my neighbors. And I was like, well, I don't know how to connect with people. So I took a step back and I was like, I just wanted to, in the room in the OT lounge, I said, hey, everyone, I literally put myself out there by saying, I want to have a collaboration with all of you and I want to show that I'm flexible. So I went out of my way to really show that I'm here to connect and to learn because I know I'm new. Like I knew they knew that I was new also. So like elephant in the room, I'm a new grad, like fresh out of school, and I want to learn from you. Like I want to be that resource and that collaborator, and I actually brought something to them. So clinically, there is a new sense at that time called interoception. If my OTs are on this chat, hopefully you know about it. But I brought a program to that facility also. So not only did I go out of my way to be like personality, like, hey, I'm just here to really be a sponge and learn and grow. So if you have any resources, like, please let me know. And then I also later down the line, it took about 3 months to win over this one person, but everyone else slowly, like a few weeks in, was like, okay, Chelsea's like I just showed my personality, and they adapted and they grew to me, and they eventually confided in me, telling me that they had a bad taste of a traveler. So if you can either bring your personality or just bring something like resources, making them some type of like rehab, home exercise, anything you can think of from your college background or from your research that could apply in that facility, bringing something new to them would also probably make them appreciate you and appreciate travelers. Because I think that's the benefit. We're very diverse. Eventually, once you get started in this industry, you're going to keep going. You're going to love it. And you're going to keep bringing like new things and cultural things that you learn along the way. So I think that's how I would show up.
Love that. We do have one more in the chat. For duplicating income, do you have to pay your tax home monthly and pay another place? Does it have to be living at the place for 30 days?
For duplicating them, do you have to pay your tax home monthly? Oh, and pay another place. Yes. Okay, so you're going to, as soon as you start your travel contract, you are going to start paying your tax home, your rent. So the first month, so say your first contract starts in January, you're paying rent for the month of January here in Hawaii. I'm also paying rent home for the month of January. So it goes by monthly. There's a really awesome travel tax company that works specifically with this and your specific situation. So what I'm paying to my parents in Delaware because I changed my tax home is different than what someone's going to be paying in California. It goes off of the city data and your exact location of that house. So what's the mortgage look like for that tax home, or what's the rent look like in that tax home? So I recommend talking to a travel tax consultant. And again, we can send a link of resources right after this to let you have more specific like guidelines on what their taxes should look like.
Yeah, we did an event with Travel Tax. So I will send you that link as well. And we also have a ton of blog resources on that information. So I will send that out after. Because neither of us are tax professionals, we try to err on the side of caution to tell you to do something, and then y'all get locked up and be mad at us. So we don't
Yeah.
want to do that. So as Chelsea urged, I will send that resource out. Just Fitness Team is great. So I will send that out. Travel Tax is the company that we recommend, and that we also did, like I said, an event during tax season with. So I'll send that in the wrap up email for you. Thank you for asking. Julia, how do you go about finding good recruiters to work with?
Good question. When I first started, I called the only travel therapist that I knew and I asked her for her recruiter. Now, being in this industry for as long as I've been, I would go by peers. If you don't know anyone that's in the industry, you now know me. So I can send you a recruiter recommendation link, a team of allied recruiters on this call as well. She can get you connected with. But outside of us, I would go on, there's some Facebook pages, like travel therapy Facebook pages. I would just do some cold research to see what agencies are out there, and then I have never personally went on someone's agency website and applied because I like to know at least someone has talked to this recruiter. So I really go by peer recommendation. But you could go on websites for agencies and apply to get connected with one of their recruiters.
Great question. Thank you for that. I'll also be sending a link for if you would like to sign up with Trusted. You'll get paired with one of our allied advocates that is specifically for allied. It's only a few of them just because we understand that it's so niche and we want to get it right. And we want to make sure that you guys are handled correctly. So it would be like Allison, Ryan Dean. I'm missing one other one, but if you guys want to just reach out to me or sign up on that link, I will make sure that you guys get attached to one of our advocates. And they're also clinicians as well with Trusted Health. So we don't have recruiters, we have nurse advocates or clinician advocates that are clinicians too. They've worked in the field in some way, shape, or form. So they kind of understand a little bit more as well. Of course, as Chelsea said, use a lot of different ones. Yes, this is a Trusted Health event, so I want you to use Trusted Health, but we understand the market is the market, the industry is the industry. As a traveler myself, I get it. But we, as I like to say, is we do want to be one of your options. You know what I mean? Hopefully, the one option that you go with, but we get it. So we understand is all I'm going to say to that. Another question is, what are the pros and cons of various different practice settings as a travel OT? This person is trying to pick a first setting as a new grad.
Yeah, so this is, it's up for your own preference. I personally felt more confident taking a setting that I got fieldwork experience in. So for my first contract out of school, I'm joining this beast of an industry. I want something that feels good because I got experience in it for my clinical. I would recommend that. Start where you know, and then after you get your first contract on your belt, you can totally dabble with all these other settings. I think just for your own simplicity and just a level of confidence, you're familiar with that setting. For your very first one, I usually recommend going with something that feels good that you know. Other settings, like you can get experience in anything. You can pick up and go and get experience in a brand new setting that you don't have. Just be up for that challenge. So that's okay too. If it's your preference to go and you didn't like anything that you got clinical experience in, then go for something new. It's just gonna be a more like an increased challenge.
Okay, love that. A few more. When do you start applying for school-based travel positions for occupational therapy?
Good question. They already ran the numbers for Hawaii for next school year. They asked the staff if we were returning. So they already have numbers for how many people they're seeking. So this is now end of April. So you could reach out to an agency in May and June, even at the end of April, to see if they're hiring for next school year. But I would say that's early. I have secured a school based gig in early July at the latest. But schools usually start in August, so I would recommend getting your foot, if you know you want school, get your foot in the door by May and contact an agency that has a school based gig because they already know the numbers most likely. May and June would be your sweet spot to get a job for the next school year.
Perfect. I know we have some on the platform, so be sure to check those out. Red flags with working with recruiters, red flags with contracts, non negotiables for contracts. Easiest
Yeah.
setting to do as a new grad. We already answered that question. So, red flags and non negotiables.
Yeah, I did. I actually just launched a podcast. So if you guys are interested, I have a podcast now with a recruiter. So it's a recruiter and traveler that came together. And we did a podcast episode on red flags on the traveler side and also recruiter side. So I dove deep into this for like 40 minutes. But I would say quickly is if they're not being responsive to your needs or even showing active listening, like if they're not listening to you for what preferences you have, then that's a red flag. If they are, let's say, not communicating in the way that you enjoy, you told them that you would like to be communicated to, again, that's a red flag. If they're just kind of being short with you or sending you jobs that aren't like what you asked for, Yeah, that's again, all these are kind of like what feels good to you. So, what's a red flag to me might not be a red flag to you. If someone's calling me nonstop and spamming me, I don't like that. So that's a red flag. However, some people might like it to be super on, like, and like talk to me all day long. So a non-negotiable would be for me 40 hours guaranteed in my contract. I'm there to work. I know I preach about bucket list adventures and seeking out hobbies, but I'm also here to work. So 40 hours guaranteed on my contract is usually non-negotiable for me. So I want to work Monday through Friday, then hit those 40 hours. Another non-negotiable would I would make sure that the cancellation policy. I always check cancellation policies for my contract and make sure that on both sides that there's at least a 30-day notice in case if we can make it that way. I don't know if it's non-negotiable; it's more a preference because if I'm gonna be dropped, I want 30 days to kind of figure it out or at least 2 weeks to figure it out. So I checked the cancellation policy. That's never happened to me. So I kind of like that one go. But early on, I was a little bit worried about that. I'm like, they can be dropped at any time. It doesn't often happen, but it happens. So you want to make sure that that's, and then a non-negotiable just outside thinking about that too is don't secure housing for a year or for 6 months. Find housing that's going to be monthly. So a non-negotiable for me is to find a lease or don't find a lease, but find a rental agreement that's going to be relating to your contract length. So don't sign something. I'm all about financial like savviness. Don't sign something and lock yourself in when you know there's potential that you could be dropped or you might not even be there as long as the contract lease says.
Okay. Julia, I'm gonna do your question last because I like it. So one last question from here. I thought this was kind of interesting. Is it difficult? It's difficult for this person to decide to sign a travel contract in such a short amount of time following an offer. How do you know when you're making the right decision?
Okay, my simplest way to say. Can I curse on this? Okay, I would say if it's not an absolute F yes, don't take it. There's so many other jobs. So if there's some type of hesitation, just don't take it. But I know this is really hard for a lot of people. It's like, how do I even trust my intuition? How do I even know, especially first starting out? So I always go back to the three things: what's the pay, what's the location, what's the setting? Does any of those from that position feel really good to you? And if you really wanted that experience in that setting, then go for it. I This is a really personalized decision making process though, because I can't tell you what works for you, because if what works for me might not also work for you, and if you take my advice and you get there and you hate it, I don't want to put the blame on me. But I would get true to your intuition, and the way I do that best is to journal. Hey, what does my favorite day look like going to this facility? So if it's in Boise, Idaho, and it's in outpatient pediatrics, what would my best day look like, and does that feel good? So I journal a lot to see, like, I try to visualize myself in that environment before I go there. I was very fearful to go to the Caribbean by myself. I heard lots of people tell me that it's very dangerous and that it's not the best place for a solo female chick to go. And so my gut was telling me go, but there's a lot of chatter around my bubble of people telling me maybe not. So I think also don't be guided by what other people are saying. Really get to know what you want to do. And again, whatever works best, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's just listening to your thoughts on a walk or what's coming up for you a lot. And then that's how I would say yes or no. But my first thing is it 100%? If it's not 100%, don't take it.
Okay, we have two more in here. Danielle, it looks like this housing question is kind of like together. So let's just put that together. Basically safety is what it sounds like the real crux of this is. Like how do you find safe places to live and how do you feel safe signing um contract housing wise?
Mm-hmm. I so early on, I actually didn't sign anything prematurely. I got there a week early rented a Airbnb or a hotel and cruised around my new environment in person because I was scared about this. As a new grad out of school, fresh solo travel, I have no idea what I'm doing. So that's an option. You can go there early and find housing and find it in person. You could also do a FaceTime call, like a video chat, and get a video screen of the environment to make sure that person's real and that you can connect with that landlord or the person you're subletting from. I would just kind of make sure that the person you're talking to is someone that you could trust, and do that by either video screening or phone call. And then I look up citydata.com and going through their crime rates in the area and ask like around if I know people in that area, what's a good place to live or what town should I look into. I lean on a lot of peer recommendations and word of mouth.
Yeah, I would also double down on what Chelsea said earlier too about like don't sign anything long term.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in unsafe slash like crazy housing situations before, and the way that I was able to get out of them is because of the clauses and things like that, as well as it not being a long extensive time. And also if they're violating any of the terms, you also want to make sure that you're looking at those as well, because if they're violating, you can get out. Also,
Smart.
if you feel unsafe, you can get out. There's a lot of especially as women, we have a lot in our power to make sure that we're safe. So um, don't feel like even if you were in something that you can't get out, but just make sure you do that due diligence up front with your contracts, if your housing contracts, to look at those clauses and those added like things as well. Okay, last two questions. I know I said this before, but for real, we gotta let Chelsea go. um do you pay to keep all your licenses in multiple states current, or let them lapse and reapply if needed?
I think a lot of travel therapists have a whole handful of licenses. So it's hard to let them go once you have them. I recently let Alaska go. So you would keep that log, like I mentioned, the date you got it issued, the expiration date, and is it active or inactive. So you want to keep that log no matter what. Because you could reapply, like I could reapply for my Alaska one and get it active again. But the key that I maybe missed saying earlier is that yes, this is coming out of your own pocket. So I do pay for my licenses. However, if I get a job with Trusted in Alaska, they'll reimburse me for my license. So as long as I save that receipt for my licensure and send it over to their licensing department, I get reimbursed on my first paycheck. So keep this very organized. And if you get licensed in those three states, like I told you early on, and you get your first job in one of the three states, that's okay. The other two will come. Eventually, they'll reimburse you if you take a contract in that state with an agency. So just keep your records and your receipts and keep a log to keep them organized. But I would keep them current if you see yourself going to those states.
Okay, and last and final one, because I think I just like this question and I always love to hear travelers' answers. Favorite cities that you've done assignments in? I know we know Alaska, so
Keep
like,
talking about Alaska. I really actually enjoyed. Well, I love Hawaii. I really love Hawaii. I'm in Honolulu. I'm on Oahu. So Honolulu is a big city. So it's not my favorite city, but it is a really popular place that people come to, and it's paradise. But I really enjoyed the jungle in the Caribbean. I St. Thomas is a very unique island. It's like a rock. Truly, it's so steep that most of the turns are like 180 going up a uphill. But I really enjoyed it for it's truly an island lifestyle, and I think I found that that's my preferred way of living, and that like island has challenged me in ways that I never even thought that I could be challenged. So I think that has a sweet spot in my heart. The Caribbean. I wouldn't live there full time, but that was like one of my favorite contracts. It's like, who else gets to live on an island in the Caribbean to serve as an occupational therapist? It just was so unique. I'm looking into staying around Hawaii, so maybe other islands. So I guess that will be to be continued. But right now, Honolulu is just a little bit too overstimulating for me, coming from the jungle in the Caribbean to coming to this island that has 1 million people on it. Bray, what about you? I want to hear yours.
I have two. Well, okay, technically I would say all of them. As a traveler,
Mm-hmm.
you'll understand, you'll get to once you become a part of this lifestyle, you'll understand that each place has a special part in your heart and you for different reasons and different things. Honestly, I can name them all, but I'd say top number one, because it was my first one and I learned so much about myself and just like being alone and doing things alone, was New York. That was my first assignment. I also got to learn a new specialty, so that was really amazing. I went from the PICU to the CV, so doing like baby heart surgeries and stuff, which is really neat. But then because I live here now, I have to say California. Like once you come to California, you're never gonna want to go back. So I just say if you're like East Coast, Midwest, or anything like that, stay, do that, all that. And then when you come to California, you're just going to want to live here and stay here because it's just so amazing. Um, so yeah, California is definitely like just one for the books. I don't
Yeah,
know how to describe it. California is just something you have to do it in your travel. So I urge everybody to get a California license, and also it pays the most.
yeah, it does.
So
Yeah. And it has the most jobs. Not only does it pay the most, California is a really solid state to get.
exactly. So I love all of this. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you so much for everybody's questions. We do have a giveaway. So for the last few people that are still here, we're giving away for two sessions for one person.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So honestly, because you have been firing up the chat, Julia, I have to give it to you.
Yeah,
Those sessions, I feel like they're going to go to good use.
yeah.
So you got to tell her, Vanna, what she's won, Chelsea.
Yes, Julia, I will connect with you after this chat. And I have a coaching platform, so I love to dive deeper into these topics. What's ever coming up for you, it's very individualized. So it's one-on-one coaching in this industry, and I will help you get started and kind of hold your hand. And so this first call, we'll schedule it. It'll be 45 minutes, and we'll dive into anything you want to know and dive deeper into it. That way you feel like your questions are answered and heard, and you can get started as a travel therapist. And anyone else that's on this chat that's still with us, feel free to message me because I am an open book and I love connecting. So even though you didn't win this little giveaway, we still have potential to have a collaboration and to chat. So you.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we honestly just really do love you all joining us. And so we always want to make it kind of enticing sometimes. So thank you for staying with us. I know we ran over, but honestly, it was juicy, good stuff. Um, like
Yeah.
I said, we did record this event for our friends who were unable to make it on shift or whatnot. So I will be mashing it up and making it all look nice. And then I'll be sending out the slides and the recording in a few days. Don't worry, I will send it out. I will not forget. I promise I got you guys. And all of you guys are already on the RSVP list. So it'll go to everyone who is on it, as well as there will be a feedback survey. So if there's something else you want Chelsea to dive deeper in or have her come back and talk about something else, like feel free. Or if there's just another topic that you are really interested in, please let us know. That's how we get better. As well as if you want to start traveling with us, we'll have all the links, all the resources, the tax information, the allied travel guides, all that stuff will be juicy and in the email. So you don't have to worry about trying to find little things. And then I'll also be listing all of Chelsea's information, how you can find her, her Instagram, her website, all that good stuff. So you can get in touch with her afterwards. And of course, I will be emailing you. So feel free to email me back if you have any questions about Trusted or you need any guidance with it, creating your profile or anything like that. Or if you're a travel nurse and you have other questions, I'm here too. But yeah, other than that, I think I ran down all the things. We just appreciate Chelsea so much for joining us today. I hope you guys found this as informational as I did and helpful to start your journey. So, yeah, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. And thank you again, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.